Welcome to Albinism Talk with Marvelyn, with your host, Marvelyn Green. Before I introduce you to our guests, please remember to follow Yell for Change on all social media platforms and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, if you would like to be a part of the Yell and Yellow campaign by sending a pic of you in yellow, please DM us on Instagram to be featured on our social media platforms also. All ages and ethnic backgrounds are welcome. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to this guest. He is from the USA. He is the founder of Life with Albinism Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my man, Dale Hamilton. Hi, Dale. Welcome to Albinism Talk with me.
Thank you. And I also want to say thank you for even inviting me. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to do your podcast. I've been seeing you do a lot of your work. I've been seeing you advocating. I've been seeing you reaching out to so many people, international people. I've been seeing you do your thing. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. So, Dale, just give a little introduction about you, what you do, quote unquote.
Okay, so as you stated, my name is Dale Hamilton. I'm born and raised in New York, and my company is Life with Albinism LLC. So it's a podcast all about albinism, helping to bring awareness and to share everyone's story. So much like you, Marvelyn, growing up with albinism, I've undergone a lot of mistreatment, a lot of bullying, a lot of teasing, being teased, being made fun of. And it was definitely a journey for me. It didn't bother me much growing up because I had very, very supportive family, and that's super important. So I had a lot of very supportive family who taught me to love myself, who taught me to be confident, who taught me to not care what others think. So my journey was a lot smoother because of that. But I would say through grade school was probably the hardest time, where you're getting picked on the most, you're getting bullied the most during those times. That was probably my hardest time. But as I gotten older, it started to slow down a bit. And, living with albinism definitely became a struggle through everyday life, from, the vision difficulties, with your skin, and preventing yourself from getting sunburn, getting sunburn a lot. And in my particular case, not being able to get a driver's license, not having a vision good enough to drive. So it's definitely been a journey for me, but, we're here now, and we're advocating for others.
Yes, I love that. So as you mentioned about, in school and everything, and I'm going to touch the educational side of things with albinism. So the question I'm going to ask you, Dale, is when you was a child or when you was younger, what age did you notice that you was different from the rest of your family?
Hold on, give me 1 second. I accidentally left the program running.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm a gamer, and I accidentally left my Avengers game running while we were talking. That's probably why my audio and everything was acting up. But okay. All right, we are ready. We are ready to go now. So let me just do here. Okay. All right, I'm so sorry about that, Marvelyn. Okay, please state that question one more time for me.
The question I want to ask you is, when you was a child or when you was younger, what age did you notice that you were different from your family?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'll give you the exact moment I realized I must have been really different. Well, two scenarios. The first situation, I was at school, and I remember just standing in line at school, and I remember some kid. He was older than me. I had to be about 6 years old, about 6 or 7 years old. And a kid came up to me, and he was like, And he says, look at this white boy over here. He says that to me.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, that's when I realized, okay, I must really be different because I'm a Black man. I know that I'm Black. My whole family is Black. Yet this guy just called me a white boy. And at that point, that's when I was like, okay, this is how different albinism must be, because it's making people misconstrue my race and ethnicity. So that was about 7 years old. That was when I first realized I must be different from others. I must be different from the other people in my family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a difference in school. So so in your family, what was it like for you? When your skin being different, what was it like for you in your family? What was that like for you when they, did they embrace your albinism when you was a child, or was it in a negative sense?
So for me, they always embraced it, right? Now, what they did do was they would also have their little playful moments, right? So for me, it was never malicious. It was never them trying to tear me down, but they would poke fun at me from time to time. So, for example, like my grandma, whenever I would stay out in the sun too long, my skin would get red, obviously, and my grandma would be like, "Oh, you look like a lobster," or something like that, but just to be funny. It was never malicious intent. It was never her trying to make me feel bad about myself. And to answer your question, how they treated it and how they embraced it. So for me, it was always positive. They always looked out for me. They knew my vision difficulties. They knew my difficulties with my skin. So they would always ask me, "Hey, did you put on your sunscreen today? Make sure you put on your sunscreen. Where's your glasses? Why aren't you wearing your glasses?" So they would always try to keep me on top of things, and they always stayed positive with me. So I've never gotten much of a malicious act towards my albinism from family.
Yeah, for me, like I had some of my family members that would care, because my mom, when I was back home, my mom used to take care of my skin, and I remember my godmother messaged me, and she was like, "I used to take care of your skin." They knew that my skin was different, so it was very delicate. So obviously, if you're from the Caribbean or Africa or from hot countries, and if you have albinism, it's a very, very important thing to do, to take precaution with your skin. So when my grandma here in the UK, God rest her soul, she would make sure I go to the opticians with my glasses and everything, and also, just take care of my skin, get sunscreens for me as well. So I've had some family members that really took good care of me in a sense. So I've had the advantage and disadvantage as well. So obviously for you, Dale, educational wise, I want to ask you this question is, did you receive special accommodations in school? For example, did you get enlarged prints because of your sight? Did you sit in the front of the class? And did you get like extra time in your exams?
Very, very good question. So for me, yes. I always sat in the front of my class. Now, I'll be honest, and again, it varies from person to person. For me, sitting in front of the class never made a difference. I still couldn't read the board. I still couldn't see. So, but I did receive the other accommodations that you mentioned. So I did get enlarged print. But here was my issue with that. Even when getting enlarged print, it would be too large. So the issue was when I say, "Hey, I need larger print for my test," they would give me a book that would be about this big. It would be like, hold on, I'm trying to get it on camera. It would be like this big, the book. And I would just be like, okay, listen, that's ridiculously too big. And then it became embarrassing, right? Because now when it's test time, your teacher's going and she's handing everybody a piece of paper for the test. And then she comes and grabs this huge book from out the back and just drops it on your desk. And now everyone's looking at you like, what the heck is that? And it's super embarrassing. Super embarrassing. But yes, I got that accommodation as well as the extra time for tests.
Now, can I just explain to the audience there? Let me explain what Dale's talking about, because I had the same thing happen to me from grade 7 to grade 11. I went to secondary school in the UK, and what you're talking about, it's like an A3 paper, yeah? It's putting two A4 papers together. And it's like, I remember when I was doing my exams and I'd done my mock test, and everybody else's paper looked normal, portrait. Came to my one now, you see this big paper, it take up the whole examination desk. Bear this in mind.
It takes up the whole desk. And it's so big that they got to just plop it onto your desk. It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. You know?
I had to request to the teachers that, no, I don't mind having enlarged prints, right? I don't mind if the font size is on the A4 paper. I don't care if I can turn 12 pages. It's fine by me. But to have that big A3 paper, it's like you have to fold it four times more just to make it fit in your bag, you know, especially in lesson times as well. Right. And it takes up so much room in your bag. And then my bag becomes so heavy with all these big papers in your bag. You're like, oh my God. I literally, I can understand the struggle with it. It's real.
So did you feel embarrassed as well when she came and brought that onto your desk?
Yeah, I did. I felt embarrassed. I was like, no way. Like, everybody else's paper is like normal, but when it came to me, it just made me felt so uncomfortable in school. And I felt so uncomfortable with that. I'm not even joking.
So uncomfortable. Super uncomfortable. Definitely.
And now I'm not alone on this one. Thank God I'm not alone. Because when I said that to my teachers, and I refused to, even though they offered me, enlarge print, whatever, didn't mind the extra time. But that big paper, man, it took up the whole, and when you're gonna, especially when you're gonna turn the page for the exam bit, and then it's all hanging off the desk.
Right. Yo, to turn the page, you had to go like this. You had to go like that to turn the page. And then everybody's turning their head and looking at you when you do it. Oh man. I can never forget those moments. Never forget.
And then you have everybody, and all eyes are on you, like when you're sitting in the examination room, and then you have the invigilators that come in and check if you're present and whatnot. And then obviously you're so embarrassed, like you're thinking, oh my God, no one's not going to do their exams. They're going to look at me. And then you have this big paper in front of you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but this is for the people who don't. This is what we go through with our visual impairments. This is what we actually go through, and at that time I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why do you have to do this big? I mean, I don't mind having a large print for me to see effectively, but when it's too big, that's what I don't like. It has to be not too big, not too small. It has to be adequate for me to see. And I'm sure that's the same thing.
Right. No, I agree with you.
No, seriously, on a serious note, for those who are listening to Albinism Talk, this is what we have to go through. Me and Dale can relate to this type of accommodation where we receive, but that was a struggle for me, even though and another thing what I hated in school as well, I don't know for you, but when they used on the boards where they use the different color pens, how did that affect you as well?
Oh, like when they would write on the board with a different a different colored marker?
Yeah.
No, because my issue was I couldn't read the board regardless. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately in grade school, I don't believe we had note takers at that time. So usually what I had to do was I would have to ask a friend to borrow their notes, or I would ask the teacher, because of course the teacher had a copy of their notes. So whatever the teacher put on the board, I would let her know, hey, I can't see the board. Can you provide me a copy of the notes. So I would usually get a copy from the teacher. So no, the different colors, it didn't matter to me because I couldn't read it anyway, you know.
Their handwriting, right? Was it their handwriting or was it typed?
So usually it was handwritten. So I believe what it was is they would handwrite their notes beforehand and then they would put it on the board, and then I would ask them to give me a copy of what they wrote. Usually it was handwritten. I don't remember it ever being typed.
Okay. See, these are things that I go through. It's like sometimes when I'm in school as well, I'll be like nudging my friend, like, "Oh, excuse me, can you just read that for me?" They'll be like, "Why? You're sitting in front." I said, "No, but my vision is less than yours because I have an albinism." And obviously at that time, and they even put me in special needs for that. I felt like, oh my God, why are you putting me in special needs? And you know,
that the same thing happened to me. And I spoke about this on my show.
Yeah.
People with albinism are wrongfully placed in special needs classes or special ed. That's how it was called back in the day, special ed classes. They're wrongfully placed in those type of classes because of their vision. Now, here's the difference, though. Even though our vision is low, it doesn't affect our cognitive capabilities. So we might be sitting in special ed because of our vision, yet we're cognitively more advanced than the people that are in those special ed classes. So we're wrongfully placed, and they have to stop doing that. They have to stop associating vision with cognitive capability.
And the thing is, Dale, is what you know, 9 times out of 10, albinism is misunderstood. It's misunderstood. Most of the time, albinism is misunderstood because
that's correct.
And the thing that, okay, just because you have low vision or you're visually impaired, they treat you like you're some kind of liability, or that you can't do much, or you're mentally challenged.
Right.
And I done a talk with, I don't know if you heard this guy called Josh Cintron. I don't know if you know him. I've done a talk with him. He was on Albinism Talk a few weeks back. And he said when he was in school, they treated him like as if he didn't know what he was doing, even though he knew that it's like, you know, the subject, but because of the visual impairment, they want to treat you as if you're not attentive then. And it's something that we need to advocate and educate the educational world, or teachers in schools or colleges, as you know, quote unquote, that just because a person has an impairment, that doesn't make them a liability, or doesn't make them, you know, that their cognitive is impaired just because of a vision impairment.
Right. So now, and mind you, that was back when I was in grade school. I'm a bit older now. I'm 32, so I don't know if they still do that now.
I'm 32
Hopefully, they have advanced their selective picking, and it's not like that anymore. But when I was in grade school, that's how it is. It may be different now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm glad that if they're making changes within the inclusion policies in the schools for visual impaired or low vision students, then that would be awesome. That would be great, because, you know, take the time out to study albinism, or because there's different type of low vision impairments, not just albinism, but albinism is the one that is misunderstood. It's misunderstood. People don't take the time out to study it, and people don't take the time out to do their research about it. So they just jump in, okay, she's in special ed or special needs class, whatever you want to call it, because she's impaired or learning difficulty. I never had a learning difficulty at all, but it was just that my vision impairment.
Right. Same thing with me. I never ever had a learning disability.
Because I can spell and I can read. My mom taught me how to read and write, and I can read and write myself. So it was only thing is like my vision is low, that I can't see detail properly due to the lack of melanin in the back of my eyes due to albinism. And even though I had teachers that really supported me in my school, so I'm very glad for the accommodations, but boy, them large prints, it's too embarrassing for me.
Right.
It's embarrassing. I'm sorry to say, up till now, I hate. Right now, I'm traumatized to even look at A3 paper. Every time I think of that, I'm thinking of in school when the teachers just give me these big in large print. It's a lot. It's a lot. So let's just move on to the question is, okay, so Dale, about you and life with albinism. So as a part of Yell for Change advocacy, I would like to ask about other people with albinism, their accomplishments, their advocacy cause, quote unquote. So why life with albinism? How did that started?
Okay, so I started life with albinism one day, and this was back in 2018. So this is way before COVID, way before all of that, like way before the podcast hype began. Um, I just realized that so many people had so many questions about albinism. Like every day, every time I walk outside, somebody asks me a question about my albinism. Well, not every day, but a lot of the times. And I realized that people just had so many questions that they had about albinism. And I said to myself, I said, wouldn't it be great if I just started a podcast that could potentially answer everybody's questions about albinism and just talk about life with albinism, how life is affected by albinism. And then I said to myself, I know so many different people with albinism. Living here in New York, there's plenty of people with albinism in New York. So I have a very close friend named Jason who has albinism. I also have a cousin who has albinism named Avery. And those are the two people that I'm most closest to, not just in life, but with albinism as well. So I immediately called the two of them and I just said, hey, man, I got this idea for this podcast. Let's call it Life with Albinism. Let's talk about different topics that affect our life with albinism. Every episode will be a different topic. And let's call other people that we know with albinism and have them come and share their story and share their insight. And that's just how it started. And I said, we're going to do the first episode with just the three of us, the three original hosts. And then every episode after that, we're going to interview someone else with albinism, and we're never going to run out of guests to interview because there's so many people with albinism and they know people who know people, so on and so forth. So ever since then, we just kept reaching out to people. Hey, would you like to come join our podcast? 9 times out of 10, they say, yeah, sure. And they would come and they would film. And we've had elderly people. We've had children on our show. We've had women, men, old, young, college students, grade school students, whoever. And we just kept going from there. And then at some point, the podcast started to pick up a lot of attention. And I said, okay, we got to step it up even further. Let's make products. Let's make t-shirts. Let's even go further. Like, let's make this bigger. Let's get a website. Let's get an Instagram. Let's just grow and grow and grow. And our future goal is to just truly become the reason why albinism becomes more integrated into the limelight. And what I mean by that is that when you look at sports, when you look at modeling, when you look at television, when you look at all of these things, you very rarely see someone with albinism. Sure, there's a couple of albino models. Sure, there's a couple of albino actors, but it's not many. Probably less than 5 in each category if we're talking about the mainstream media. So that's also something that I eventually want to help to change. I'm not going to try to take sole ownership over changing that, but I want others to help me. And I just want to push the albinism community forward, and I want to push it more into the limelight so that we can see more people with albinism popping up in the media, popping up online, social media, or whatever the case, and just help integrate it into the limelight and to just truly push, encourage, and educate the albinism community forward. And that's what Life with Albinism is all about.
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh my God. You know what? I don't know if you know this with me. I'm always trying to push out the t-shirts. I'm like, oh my God, support this, from as Yell for Change advocacy. It's no competition with any other advocacy cause where you're one of them. And, it is also my due diligence as the founder of Yell for Change is to support the albinism community, whatever it is, in any way that I can, even if to really promote the t-shirts on Yell for Change's story, and any projects that anybody else with albinism is doing, just to promote their products as much as mine, because we're all in it together. At the end of the day, it's not about competing, it's about we need each other. So without each other, the product or the content won't grow or evolve without support from each other. And that is one of the things that I want the albinism community to understand and to know, that we all need to support each other. We can't be divided. So it's to bring out Life with Albinism to launch out, to branch out, because even still, like when I started Yell for Change and I saw Life with Albinism, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a very good product. I want to jump on and support this product. So
yeah, and I greatly appreciate that, because you were one of the first people to ask to buy one of our Life with Albinism t-shirts. And you also have always shared my content on Instagram, on Facebook. You've always spoke highly of my content. You've always helped me to reach more viewers. So I greatly appreciate what you do, because you are truly for the albinism community, because you've been promoting me since I first even came in contact with you. So I greatly appreciate your effort. And that's what it's about, helping each other and building together as a community.
Of course. And then that's what it's all about for me. I would love to see, it's already hard having albinism. It's already hard and the struggle what we go through. So why would I make another person with albinism life more harder? It's about just help another person up along the way. So, if you see a person struggling with albinism, you just encourage them or empower them and say, you know what, your content is good, your product is good, keep going at. You may not get a lot of views now, but the views will come. And if as long as you're passionate about what you're doing, then you will see other people will be attracted to your work or your content, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think that that's super important. That's what it's all about. It's just helping each other, building together, and sharing each other's content, and you're doing amazing content yourself, and I like the fact that you also reach out to a lot of international people with albinism. Like I've seen you reaching out to people in Africa and Kenya and different areas with albinism. So that outreach is super important too.
Because we're gonna speaking of Africa, I'm gonna touch on that in a second, but I want to talk about you when it comes to, all right, like when you go out in public, for example, like you go to restaurants and just public places in general. What accommodations did you have to do to help you with your albinism?
Okay, so for me, the only thing I can think of in those situations is what I would normally do is this. If I'm with someone and I go to a restaurant, let's say I can't read the menu, because let's just say there's some restaurants, let's say if you go to a restaurant that's not a sit-down restaurant, then they'll have their menu plastered onto the wall, and then it becomes harder to see because the menu is far away from you. So if I'm with someone, I always tell them, hey, I need you to be my eyes for a second. Can you read to me the menu so I can know what they sell or how much it costs? And then if it's like a menu where we sit down and have a menu, I'll try to look as close as I can. And if I still can't read it, now this is more rare, because if I can have a paper menu, then I can usually read it because I can bring it as close as I need to. But even in that situation, if I couldn't read it, then same scenario, I would ask the person with me or beside, the person who's with me and say, hey man, could you read to me this menu? That's about all the accommodations that I would make. Or another accommodation that I always do when I go to restaurants, if the seating is outside or very close to the window and it's a very sunny day or a very hot day, I would always switch seats with whomever I'm with. So I would tell my wife, hey, do you mind sitting by the window while I sit over here so I can be away from the sunlight? Or if we're sitting outside, I'll particularly pick the table that has the most shade. So I'll
Yeah.
always look for the shade if it's a hot day.
Yeah, because of the sun, because
Right.
with the sun, the sun is our greatest enemy because of the lack of pigment in our eyes and so forth. So obviously, it's good that
Absolutely.
it's good that you're improvising and accommodating for yourself in that way to protect yourself really from the sun. And most people with albinism, some people are ignorant to this. And then there's people of maybe of melanated color be like, why does he have to swap seat there? But you don't understand, it's the fact that when your eyes are light sensitive to the sun, it makes the vision more harder when when you go out in the sun, and then it's like, you can't see so well, and then your eyes are just kind of like moving around and stuff. That's happened with me as well. So yeah, so we're gonna talk about the myths now. Oh gosh, Dale. Ah, Africa is killing us, man. Oh my God. So, what is your view about the myths in Africa with all these attacks and these superstition beliefs? What is your opinion about the myths?
Okay, so my first question is, so we've always heard about the killings in Tanzania that happen where people with albinism are of threat in places like Tanzania and other places. My first question is, does that even still happen in 2020? Because whenever I've heard of this long time ago, years ago. Is this still current? Do they still do that?
Yes, there is. Not, I'm not hearing of anything with Tanzania as such. However, in certain parts of the southern parts, like Zambia, Malawi, Botswana, the southern parts of Africa, there has been cases where people have been abducted and murdered. There was a case in Zambia. There's two cases I have been familiar with. In May, there was a little girl, 2-year-old girl. She had her hand amputated by two criminals who pretended that they were police officers, and they they went in the girl's room while she was sleeping. And when I talk about this, it's so heartbreaking. So I'm trying my best not to cry on this talk, because this is so emotional, because this is an innocent baby that did not deserve to have her hand chopped off for ritual purposes. They pretended to be police officers there, and they even threatened, obviously, the mother. So they did not only chop the little girl's hand off, but they did it in front of her brother and her mom
And
in
this
Zambia.
recently happened?
Yes, in May. And there was
Okay. So
another scenario in September again, where the same method they've used. However, they caught one of the attackers. It was a family member that perpetrated this on a 12-year-old boy. His hand was chopped, but they couldn't save the arm in the hospital, so they had to amputate the hand. So this is two scenarios that has happened, and there's other cases as well. And another case in South Africa, I was told by another person on Albinism Talk. She shared this information with me that a witch doctor and two accomplices, they got 2 life sentences because they killed a girl, 13-year-old girl in South Africa. They mutilated her and they put her genitals, her breasts, and her vaginal parts in a mayonnaise jar and put in a pharmacy for ritual purposes. And he actually bragged about it in court.
So
In court.
here's my thoughts on that. Of course, as we all know, it's horrible. It's very
Mhm.
horrible. And I think that at this point in life, we should be past that.
Mhm.
I can see that back in the day, like let's say 30, 40 years ago, I could see albinism being such a phenomenon that people would just think something silly like, oh, it must be magic, because, back then you just didn't have enough science, didn't have enough education to truly know what was going on. So I can
Mhm.
understand that they would feel like it was an anomaly way back then. But we're far more advanced now in medicine and
Exactly.
technology. We should be very all aware of what albinism is.
Mm-hmm.
The people in Africa should know by now it's not supernatural, it's not witchcraft, So I just hope that these killings and these mishaps that are occurring, I just hope that this stuff stops
Me
very, very
too.
soon, because we should be at the point as a society everywhere we're at to know this stuff is not supernatural. We do not
I'm
have
not,
any powers.
and the thing is as well, Dale, it's like when I read that story, because when I read that article, it bothered me. I'm not gonna lie, it bothered me. I literally cried. I'm not gonna lie. I done a talk on International Albinism Awareness Day with a friend of mine. She hosted the talk and she invited me and two other PWAs, and we all said we all when we was talking about this, we all cried. Like we literally were. It was so raw and emotional. I mean, I had to be the strong one to really talk about it. I had to really be the one to say, man, this is as much. I try not to even thinking about it now. Like I just feel like crying because when you hear these things, I mean, it's bad enough that adults go through this, but I feel it for innocent babies that didn't deserve to be treated in this way. And that little girl touched my heart. It touched my heart to the point where I said to my husband that, man, I can't even sleep. And he's like, Marilyn, what's wrong? I said, this baby's touching my heart because it feels like it's happening to me. And I have albinism. Feels like you're
Right.
cutting my hand off or you're cutting my foot off, and things, these kind of things that as a part of this advocacy, we have to speak out and say, no, this can't go on anymore. This can't go
Yeah.
on anymore. And I had a listener, she's in the UK and she's a person of albinism. She's older than us. And you know, she will share the information in sub-Sahara in Africa. That place is where they do there as well, the mutilation, the killings, and so forth. But I think these myths is a part of, okay, it's a systematic belief, which is not true. Because when do you really hear somebody say a PWA or person with albinism has given them rituals or wealth? I really want to see an article on this.
Right. 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 It's just silly, and hopefully that stuff stops.
Mhm.
Hopefully it stops.
Yeah, because I honestly, when I hear stories of this, when I heard of it back in the day, people talk about this. I never thought this was true. I didn't think it was real. But because social media and journalists has gone undercover, I've heard that they've gone undercover to expose this. Now it's brought to the light now, and that's where advocacy started. Because I didn't think it would be that bad where people with albinism will get killed or persecuted just because of something is lacked and for ritual purposes. And I also was told by another PWA from South Africa, she shared this with me a couple episodes ago. She said that an arm would cost 90,000 US dollars.
Wow. You said it would, how much? $1,000?
90K.
90,000. Oh, I might give an arm for
$90,000.
$90,000.
So,
I might give all. You might listen. If I was not a gamer, I'd give you an arm for $90,000. You know what I'm saying? That might not be too bad. Okay, I'm just
no.
being
No,
silly,
no, I know what
people.
you mean. But
Yes, people do not
like,
take this
yeah.
serious. I'm just
So
joking.
yeah,
We do
I
not
know.
condone any of that.
Yeah, we don't. I condone it, but I'm just saying, like, a body part on the black market, if it's an arm or a leg, it will cost that much for a
Wow.
person with albinism. And when
Wow.
I was mind blown by that, I said, "Are you serious right now? You're telling me an arm or a leg will cost 90K?"
Yes. Wow. Wow. that's,
I
you know,
was,
that kind of, I mean, you know, that's kind of like, it's horrible, but then in another note, it's kind of like telling us we're very valuable. You
yeah,
know?
we are. So, even though it's a horrible situation, hey, you want to buy me for $90,000? Okay, cool. If you say
Wow.
if I bring wealth to your house, then hey, I bring wealth to your house. I'm a blessing to you. Then if you take my arm for 9,000, then maybe it can help cover your debts and bills. And I'm not condoning any form of brutality, but if that's the kind of mindset that you lot have, then boy. And another myth as well that I don't know if you've heard as well, where they said people with albinism, we cure HIV or AIDS.
Yeah, so I've heard that, and a person actually told me that that is why a lot of women with
Yeah, well,
albinism in Africa actually suffer from HIV and AIDS because they've been maliciously raped by other
yeah,
men who have HIV and AIDS that think that that woman was their cure. So yeah,
mhm,
I've heard of that, and because they think that that's the cure, these men who are infected with HIV and AIDS, they go and they rape a woman with albinism thinking it will cure it, and now you've just spread it to her, and so on and so forth. Yeah,
mhm.
that's just absolutely
Oh,
the pit of the bottom of just not
low.
even just malice and malicious intent, but just of cruelty, just of human cruelty. That is the bottom of the barrel of human cruelty. Like that kind of stuff makes no sense. Makes no sense at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, it's so true because you're like, okay, instead of curing it, you're giving it. And, it's a life sentence for that person now because not only that you pass it on to her, you've ruined her life now. So
Right,
she has to carry that disease for the rest of her life. And then
right,
it's like they have to have treatments. And imagine treatments is not cheap.
right.
It's not like
Especially
in the
not in
U,
Africa. I'm
not in
sure
Africa,
it's not
boy.
even readily available in Africa. The
Right.
treatment.
It depends and depends on the type of support system you get or resource that you have there. So it all depends on the area that you live in. So you don't have the actual adequate support. So it's even harder for them. So these are things that it's put in the front line. So no, albinism is not what you think it is. No, it doesn't cure HIV. It doesn't cure any diseases at all. So, don't get it twisted. It's not what you think it is. But I think because I believe this myth is spread by a lie, and then the lie gets bigger and bigger,
Right.
and then people start to believe, it's so true. It's true that means so and so. But I haven't been exposed to this type of things myself, but to see it and to hear about it, to see videos of it, I am traumatized because it feels like it's actually happening to me. Honestly, that's just I can empathize in a sense. I put myself in that scenario in a sense of it feels like it feels like my body's been attacked. You know,
Wow.
that's how I don't know if you feel that same way as well.
No, of course I don't feel that same way, but for someone who has a lot of empathy and sympathy,
Yeah,
yeah, I can
yeah,
see why they would feel
yeah,
that way.
yeah. You empathized with that person, so it's like it's horrible, these myths, these things, and and not only that, and another thing, I don't know if you heard about this one as well, Dale. I was also told that they desecrate a person with albinism. When a person with albinism died, they don't bury them in the day; they bury them at night. Because of these myths and this dangerous superstition, they believe that a person with albinism, they don't die. So what they do, they say that they vanish.
You know, at some point I start to think, do people even really believe that? Or is this just, this is like no different than let's say like the tooth fairy or something at this, because something like that
Yeah.
is just so ridiculous that it's no different than believing in like the tooth fairy or something. So I would really challenge show me a person who really believes that. I don't even think people genuinely
Mhm.
believe that anymore. I think that that's just maybe something they thought centuries ago that just kept
Mhm.
lingering around and just continued to be like an urban legend or something. I don't think that there's anyone in their right mind that still even believes this kind of nonsense, you know?
Yeah, because all right. So even when a person dies, they got exhume their body and take their body parts. And I just think it's so barbaric that actually when someone sent me a link about there's a charity called Under the Same Sun, and the person with albinism, he died of skin cancer, and someone digged up his grave, exhumed his body and take body parts from it. So these are things that are still going on in this day and age right now. Not even in death that a person albinism is um is safe. And I
Wow.
literally was so speechless that these things are still going on. So person can't even have a proper resting place or have a to be and to respect the dead with dignity. In other words,
Yeah,
it
that's
just makes
sad.
me feel
That's sad. Like
yeah.
prayers for those who could possibly even be affected or experience this. Prayers to all of those. That's sad.
Hmm. Definitely, definitely. So let's move on now because as a part of Albinism Talk as well, I always ask my guests, we're gonna talk about mental health now. So Dell, in your opinion, you know, and where you are as well, is mental health spoken about within the PWA community?
So I feel like mental health is probably one of the least talked about topics in the albinism community. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a very important topic to discuss, but I think it's always forgotten. You know, whenever we talk
Mm-hmm.
about albinism, we talk about the hair, we talk about the skin, we talk about the vision, we talk about the bullying, we talk about relationships, we talk about everything, but mental health is always forgotten. And I think it's very important because I know a few people whose mental health was actually affected by having albinism, whether it be it tears down their confidence or it makes them feel inadequate to others or it just deteriorates their ego, their feeling of self-worth. They start to feel like no one takes them serious. They start to feel all these different psychological ways that truly breaks a person down to the core.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, none of those things has happened to me, and that's because I've had a strong family backing to prevent me from ever getting to that point mentally or emotionally. But it happens, and mental health is serious because when
Mm-hmm.
you just put yourself, well, I can't say this to you because you have albinism. So for someone who doesn't have albinism, put yourself in the mental mindset of having a condition that you cannot change, that literally alters how you look and alters what you can do on the daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And it causes you all of these stares, all of this mistreatment. You're bound to have some kind of psychological issue or effect from it. And it
Mm-hmm.
can affect your mental health. And in some scenarios, it could possibly affect your mental health in a positive way, like how it may have done for me, where it just helps me to know, hey, I'm different and there's nothing wrong with that. But it can also definitely affect your mental health in a negative way. So I think mental health and albinism definitely connects. And it is a serious topic that should always be addressed and discussed.
For me, I would love to come back on your podcast at some point and talk about this because, mental health is real. And not only just in the albinism community, but my main focus is with the albinism community because of the self-esteem issues, as you said, about the confidence, feeling rejected by peers and family members, isolation, quote unquote, all of those things takes a toll on somebody's mental health because, especially if you was born different and you coming into society and society treats you in such a negative way. And because of the stigma around albinism, of course, a lot of people with albinism may be timid to go outside or they're scared to meet new people, new surroundings because of it. So it's like a mental jail, you know? And these are things that it needs to be exposed. It needs to be talked about more, not just the physical aspects of having albinism, but the psychological and the emotional health and well-being. Because most people with albinism, majority I know of, some they're very timid, some are shy, some are even scared to even maybe talk to other PWAs, if you know what I'm saying. So these are
Yeah.
areas that we need to make it as advocates to be the voice to those who are struggling with their mental health. Because I know what it is, like myself, having anxiety and battling depression. I know what it's like to even dealing with the identity crisis. Obviously, as a Black woman myself, my parents are Black, and I'm sure, when people look at your skin and they say, oh, you're a white girl, or you're a white boy, or you're a white man or white woman, but not looking at your features and saying, okay, your features is Black, but your skin is different. So these are an identity crisis also has an impact on the mental health on a person with albinism,
Absolutely.
and then it's like, okay, and we get attacked for the way we speak or the way we look, and they say, oh, why are you acting Black, or you're not a Black girl. So I've had that scenario where people say, why are you acting like a Black girl and you're not Black, you know but science said I am a Black woman, but my skin is lighter than yours. So why are you stigmatizing me? You should learn to embrace difference. And another thing as well, we've been in the Black community and having albinism, I truly believe it's another level of racism from your own kind as well, because it's like you're Black, but you're like melanin, but it's like you get mistreated from your own race.
I agree. I totally agree.
And also that does take a toll on your mental health, the identity of knowing who you are. Can I just share this story with you? I was saying this to my husband. I said, when I was younger, I didn't know about ethnic background, like when you put on a form to say what ethnic background are you from. And I remember this, and I will never forget this. I remember I put on the form there, I'm Black and white Caribbean. And my granddad, God rest his soul, gave me the stare of all stares. You know them looks that you proper scary. It was so scary. He looked at me and he said, "What did you put that there for?" I said, "Granddad, am I not white and Black Caribbean? Obviously, I'm a Black woman, but my skin is white." I didn't understand it. So he said to me, "Don't ever put that on the form again. Don't ever put, don't, don't ever put that on the form again. You are not Black and white Caribbean. You are a Black Caribbean. So every time they ask you on the form, you put Black British Caribbean or Black Caribbean." And so from that now and up to now, I still do it, but I haven't done it. I don't really do it as much, because sometimes it's like, if they ask me what's my ethnic origin or my ethnic background, if I say I'm a Black Caribbean and they look at my skin, they'll be like, what do you mean you're Black Caribbean, but your skin looks different? So what I do is, now they've put it as a thing here is, you prefer not to say. So I choose that just to be on the safe side of things now, because sometimes I just cannot be asked to explain about my albinism to people. Sometimes I just can't be asked. But I sometimes, if I really need to, I will probably do it. But most times I'll be like, I prefer not to say my ethnicity, because even though I know I'm a Black woman, it's already hard as it is having albinism. And then people look at you and they'll be like, but you're not Black though. Your skin's not Black, but it's nothing to do with being Black. It's actually your identity. And that's one of the things with identity crisis within the albinism communities. Whether if you are Black with albinism or if you're Latino with albinism, it comes down to society stigmatizing us because of our ethnic origins.
Yes. Understood.
So Dale, oh my God, it's almost to the hour. Obviously, normally if there was people who was joining us, but it's okay because I like it like this sometimes. Because sometimes when people in the room and they have their mics on, sometimes I can't get through what I need to get through. But yeah. One of the things that's with you, so relationship wise, I want to ask you. So you said you were married. So um when you met your wife, I'm also married as well. So did she how did she feel about you having albinism? What was her impression of you?
So, the funny thing was, and she didn't tell me this until later on after we've gotten married. The funny thing is this: before she met me, she said to herself in her head,
Yeah.
I would love to have a Black man who looks white. Now, when she told me this, I'm just like, where the heck did that thought come from? And why did you, and mind you, she felt this way before she met me. And the crazy thing is, she said to herself, I never even thought about albinism when that thought came into my mind. So I guess maybe she would have looked for a light-skinned Black male. I don't know. But she said to herself she wanted a Black man with the Black features, but who had the appearance of a man who's white, like on the outside. And that's exactly what she got. So now she has a man who is Black, who looks to be white on the outside. And I guess it works perfect for her. So, I guess she loves it.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of this, This is
I've
kind
never heard this before either. Very strange.
Wow.
Very strange. But
wow. Wow. Oh my God.
that was her thoughts.
Oh my God. Well, wifey, you chose a right man. I honestly, for me, I've been married coming up, well, next year will be 4 years since I've been married. And my husband, I always asked him this. I said to him, when you first met me, like, and before we even got together, we were friends and everything. And I was like, what did you see in me that drew you to me and stuff like that? And he says, do you know what? I never looked at your albinism. I just see the person, that's who you are. And that's what kind of gravitated to me and my husband, where he doesn't even look at the condition. He sees me for me. And that's one of the messages that I want to really send across to any PWAs that are struggling to find a relationship. Be with somebody that will love you beyond your albinism, because I'm sure your wife doesn't even look at your albinism in any way. Like, she won't even be like, oh, he's just a albinism guy or whatnot. She loves you beyond that. And that is so important, that a person can love you beyond any skin condition, whether if it's vitiligo, albinism, any, just any genetic conditions really. And that's a good partner or a good husband or a good spouse to have, to love you beyond your condition. So I'm glad that your wife and my husband can love us beyond our albinism.
Yeah, and I think that's super important, because you want someone who can love you for you, and not only that, but be willing to accept what comes with it. Because if you want to date me, or you want to date a person who has albinism, understand what comes with it. And what's going to come with it is a lot of stares, a lot of unwanted attention, a lot of people approaching me, asking me a bunch of questions. So be prepared to deal with what comes with dating a person with albinism.
It's so true. And not only that as well, and not only that as well, what I've also come to learn about albinism is itself, yeah, it comes with the benefits of having it, because even with me as a woman with albinism, you know, I can melanate my skin. I can put makeup on. I look fabulous. I can not wear makeup and I still feel beautiful, you know? And one of
Yeah.
the things I overcame was my natural hair color with the blonde. I overcame that. As you can see, I decided, you know, to go natural blonde, you know,
And I
right now.
love that. I really love that. And so now, Marvelyn, I am definitely running a bit low on time, so
Yes,
I
we're gonna wrap
gotta
this up.
skate. But listen, if you ever want me to come back onto your show, let me
Yeah,
know.
definitely.
I'll definitely invite you back onto my show, but I
Definitely.
definitely gotta run. So,
Yeah,
um,
so just
is
to,
there
just to
any?
wrap this up, just to wrap
Okay.
this up, I know you have to go. So just to wrap this one thing, I'm gonna say, what is the message you would like to leave with me and to the listeners out there?
Okay, the message I want to leave with everyone is be confident in your skin. Be confident in your skin. Be confident with how you look and who you are, and do not care about what other people think, because what other people think of you does not matter. Confidence
Mhm.
is key, especially if you have albinism. And
Yes.
listen, if anybody wants to reach out to me or wants to talk to me, you can contact me on any of my social medias. The Instagram is life_with_albinism. The YouTube is Life with Albinism Podcast. And we do have a website. So if any of that is too difficult to remember or to write down, just go to lifewithalbinism.com. That's it. Simply lifewithalbinism.com. Right there's our Instagram, our YouTube, our podcast, our bio. You can reach out to me, any of our co-hosts, any of our guests. I'm open for discussion to talk. If you want to join my podcast, let me know. If you want to join Marvelyn's podcast, definitely contact her. Love you guys. And I'm just so happy to have been on your show, Marvelyn. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, guys, you hear it from the man himself. Please follow Dale Hamilton's links, life_with_albinism on Instagram. Subscribe to his YouTube channel, guys. And also remember to subscribe to Yell for Change YouTube channel, and please follow us on all social media platforms. So the word is Yell, so YELL, the number 4, change. And if you are a PWA and a parent with children or a child with albinism and you would like to be featured on Yell for Change podcast, and if you'd like to be a part of Dell's podcast, please reach out to us on Instagram or email yellforchange@gmail.com for Yell for Change podcast. Have you got an email that you like to drop, Dell? If you
Yes, lifewithalbinism3.com. But I know throwing all of those links could be a little confusing. So quickest way where you can get to everything that I have to offer, lifewithalbinism.com.
That's fine. So that's it, guys. So thank you for taking your time out with me, Dale, on Albinism Talk with Marvelyn. That's it for tonight, guys. Remember to yell for albinism. Together we stand, together we can. Thank you so much for tuning in to Albinism Talk with Marvelyn. Thank you so much.
Thank you.